Hello and welcome back to the Mrs. Money Hacker YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be going through my time to financial independence calculator, which I've launched recently on my paid members area, and I'll link to that below. And basically want to go through a couple of scenarios, how to use the tool, but also why you would use it. So for example, personally, I open up this calculator probably on a weekly basis as I think up new ideas or things that I want to figure out the impact on our time to financial independence. And really in terms of personal finance, it is just that, it's personal. But in order to help you make your decisions and weigh up all of your other goals, your personal goals, everybody has their own lifestyle that they prefer or their own long-term goals that they have in mind. And knowing the figures behind that and knowing the math and how it stacks up can help you make those decisions. So just last week, for example, we came across a house that we really, really loved. We kind of have it on our medium term goals that we would like to move maybe more out to the countryside, better a school area for our son and things like that before he gets to school age. So that is on our horizon. So we were kind of keeping an eye on houses, and we came across one that we really loved. It was by the beach, and it was a really lovely, modern, new build, all open plan, lots of sunlight, all of the things that ticked a lot of boxes of things that we'd be looking for. But actually, when we crunched the numbers, we realized, you know what, it's not worth it. We'd be overextending ourselves. We'd be giving up a lot of the financial freedom that we worked so hard for. We both would have had to have gone back to work. We would have had less time now with our son while he's small and all of that. So, being able to crunch the numbers on the fly using this calculator really helped us to kind of rein in our emotional attachment to the house and make a far better decision based on our own personal goals. And that is really the power of the tool. Even things like deciding if my husband should go back to work because it will give us more financial freedom in the medium term rather than, what we'd be sacrificing now would be giving up, the time freedom that we have, the flexibility that we have. We don't have to rush our son off to creche and all of that. Again, being able to crunch those numbers and see, okay, well, actually, it's only going to shave off a year or two. It's not worth it based on what would be trading off in exchange for that. So these are all things that this tool can help you work through, and I'll skip over to a screen recording now where you can see me walking through the tool and how you'd use it in your own situation. I've tried as much as possible to make it as automated as possible so that you don't have to get bogged down in the fine details of all the calculations. You can, of course, go into the detailed spreadsheet where you can see all the calculations working, and you can update all of the assumptions based on, the finer details if you really want to get down and into the nitty gritty. But if you are just looking for a quick and dirty estimation or an idea of comparing options, this tool, it allows for both. So you can get into as much detail as you want, or you can bring it up to as high level as you want. So without further ado, I'll swap over to the screen recording and just walk through the tool. Okay, so here we are over in the calculator. If you've gone to the members area and signed up, you can download this. I also update it from time to time, so do check back. For example, I put the date, the year, and the month in the file name so you can see if a new version has been released. And the reason why I make it an annual subscription is because I do keep adding to this and making it a bit more user-friendly, or as I find bugs in my code, I make updates. So it is a continually evolving thing, and as also the tax landscape changes, different investments might be taxed differently and things like that. I do keep this up to date because I personally use it almost on a weekly basis. So it is a constantly growing and changing tool. So without further ado, here we go. This here at the top is your years to financial independence timer. So it basically updates as you update these figures, so you can see an instantaneous change and what impact each change makes to your time to financial independence. Essentially, anything in orange are the things that you need to update, and the things that are highlighted in orange but not in orange background are those that are fed in from another tab, which you have the option to use or override yourself. So I'm just going to go with the quick and dirty approach just to give you an idea of how easy it is to use. But for those that really want to get under the hood and figure out, exact weighted performance of their current portfolio and things like that, I also have this portfolio performance calculator here, which is, to be honest, the most time consuming portion of this if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty of what it is exactly that your current portfolio is performing at. If you just want a general indication of averages, average performance and things like that, you can use those. So, for example, here we have your age. So, I've pre-populated base data, which you can override, just to show you how the calculations all work. So, for example, you have a couple, one is 36 and one is 40. You have a current ETF portfolio of 7,600, a current stock portfolio of 8,800, a current pension. So the pension of person number one is 50,000 and the pension of person number two is 90,000. As we continue to go down, then and you can plug these figures in yourself. You can start to see here, this is the part that's going to take you a bit of time. If you don't know these numbers off the top of your head, you'll have to obviously open up your pension performance to see what the current valuation is at. You'll have to open up your brokerage account or your stock trading account to see what your current valuation is. But once you get those, you can plug in the totals here. And also the performance, these are the parts that's going to take the longest time to try and figure out. But once you've figured it out once, then obviously you need to keep an eye on how your performance is going. Maybe update it once a year, once every 6 months if you do use it on a continual basis. But the hard work is really going to be done in the first instance. Then once you get all of those, so here you put in your ETF performance, your stock performance, your pension performance. You have to figure out your annual fees that your pension is charging. So a pension typically charges fees under three main categories. They're called annual fund management charges, annual management charges, or some version of those names. And then they have allocation rates, which is, sometimes they'll build a fee into every contribution that you make. So first you need to figure out the annual fees that they're charging. The annual fund management fees, those are going to be based on the funds that you're invested in. And to figure out the weighted percentage here, I have this performance calculator here, which you can use. I won't go into that in this video because it can be a bit overwhelming for the first time. There's a lot of information that you need to dig up. But for the purposes of this, I've just put in some base stats here, and you can do some digging on your own to figure out those, or you can just put in some averages here and just see how it works out. You also need to put in your dividend performance and your tax band. So whether you're in the 21% tax band or the 52% tax band, you just put that in here because that's what your dividends are going to be taxed at. Then in terms of ETFs, you want to put in the amount that you want to invest per month. You want to put in the number of purchases you're going to make a year. So if you're going to make it one purchase a month, you put in 12. If you're going to do it once every 6 months or once every 4 months, that once you've built up a bit of savings, you can put in the number of purchases you're going to make here. And then I've put in the traditional DEGIRO costs here for Irish Stock Exchange purchases. So you can update this based on the purchase costs that your broker charges. I've used the one from DEGIRO. If you're using something like a bricks and mortar brokerage that's not online, the fees might be significantly higher. I've seen some even at €50 per transaction. So that is a really worthwhile exercise to try and figure out what those costs are, because they obviously impact on how much is going to be invested at the end of the year. So for example, if you're investing 200 a month and your costs are €2 flat fee times your 12 transactions and a percentage of what you're investing, it comes out to a fee of €96 for an investment at 2,400, which means that you're only investing 2,300. You don't have to worry about all this. This is all calculation. So you can see here at updating, based on what I've input here. So literally anything that's in orange are the things that you would update. Again, once you've figured out what these costs are, you don't have to update these ones any further. You just have to update, if you're able to, if you get a raise and you're able to invest a bit more, you can come open up this spreadsheet again and just update the figures and see what impact it has. You can see here this years to financial independence is updating based on what I've input there as well. So for example, let's go back to 200. It shows you that it's going to take you 20 years to get to financial independence. If I up that to 600, it shaves 3 years off the time to financial independence, and also shows what age you will be based on that time frame. So then we have the stocks. It's the same concept here. So you have the amount that you want to invest per month. I have the stamp duty here. Sorry, that's supposed to be 0.5%. So it is 0.5 there. It's just rounding up. I'll change that. But yeah, basically, if you're investing in the UK markets, it's 0.5%. If you're investing in Irish stocks, it's 1%. So you might want to just check on that and update whatever it is based on the purchases that you're making. And here again, if you up your investments, you can see the time impact that it's going to make on your years to financial independence. Same thing for your pension then. You want to put in the amount that you're investing per month. Now this will be pre-tax money. So you would just need to check this with your employer. If you have pension matching or anything like that, you want to include your employer matching portion in here as well. So you just want to figure out what amount that you are investing per month and put that in there. Once you figure out your allocation rate, and this may require a bit of digging or even a call to your pension provider, but yeah, you should be able to see that on your annual return or your annual summary statements, what your allocation rate is. If you can't find it, give them a buzz and you can input that here. Typically, it's anywhere from 95% to 105%. If it's 105%, it essentially means they're covering some of the other costs elsewhere by contributing more per contribution. So here I put an allocation rate of 102%, and you can see here that if you're investing $1,000 per month, it comes out to $12,000 a year. It actually means they're investing 240 on top of your investments because of the allocation rate. So obviously, the higher the allocation rate, the better. But yeah, just something to find out, to plug in there to figure out the net impact. Then I have a mortgage details. So if one of your situations is or if one of your scenarios is, do I want to pay down my mortgage first and then invest? This is where you put in those details. So you need to figure out your current mortgage balance, your current house value. The only reason I put in the current house value is because it calculates your loan to value ratio, so that if this goes below 80% or 70% or 60%, even 50%, you can get and negotiate better mortgage rates. So it's worthwhile keeping an eye on that loan to value ratio as you pay down against your mortgage, because it will flag to you then once you're below a certain bracket, you may be in a position to reapply for a better mortgage rate. So here you put in your current mortgage repayments. You put in if you want to contribute additionally to your mortgage to pay it down quicker. To see what impact that has, you can update this. So let's say I want to do $600 extra a month. You can see that shaves off. It goes from, this is the amount of years remaining on your mortgage, which is different to the amount of years to financial independence. And the assumption that I make here is that as soon as your mortgage is paid, you'd be contributing your mortgage payments and any additional payments you were making to your ETF portfolio. Now, that may be an assumption you don't want to go with. That is how the calculator is built. If you want to tweak around the numbers and change that, you can go into the detailed calculations and change around the calculations. But that is the assumption that it goes with, just in an effort to automate that, basically showing that once you've freed up the money that you'd paid towards your mortgage, that it would be contributed to another investment vehicle. So here you can see it's going to be 19 years till your mortgage is paid if you make these current repayments. If you want to up it to 600 extra per month, you can see the impact that has on your remaining years on your mortgage. but that it doesn't overly change your time to financial independence. Let's just see that again. Yeah, it doesn't change your time to financial independence. Um, so here is where you put in your additional what you want your expenses to be when you want to no longer work for money. So let's say you get your expenses down to a point where you can live off 35,000 a year, keeping in mind that in 16 years' time you will potentially no longer have a mortgage. In this scenario, you will. You can see here you have 16 years to financial independence, but still another 3 years of your mortgage payments once you reach that number. So you have to take that into account when you're coming up with this number. If you still have a mortgage payment of 12,000 a year and your remaining expenses are 30,000 a year, that means you still need to cover 42,000, and you can see the impact that that's going to have. It now brings you up to your 19 years, which is when your mortgage will be paid. So it is a little bit tricky because this is where you would need to go into the detailed calculations and play around with the details if you are kind of going with this approach. If you are looking to focus on paying off your mortgage more quickly, like let's put 600 a month extra, and you then in 18 years, okay, so let's say 18 years, I'll no longer have a mortgage of 12,000. My current expenses of 40,000 now become 32,000. I'm going to say 32,000. You may have childcare costs that you will no longer have in that amount of time as well. So those are all things to take into account. Obviously, to get this figure, you have to know where you currently are, and that's where the expense tracking tool that I have on the members area comes in handy as well. So that is obviously the very first step you need to take, is get a really detailed picture of where your money is currently going. And you can only do that by tracking your expenses. So that's the first step, I suppose. Before we go into any of this, you need to know what you're spending now so that you can figure out what you think you may be able to spend when you're ready to no longer work for money. So let's just say it's 32,000. This is the portfolio value you would need, and you want to go with a safe withdrawal rate of 4%. This is the standard percentage that they use in a lot of retirement calculations. So this is kind of the safe withdrawal rate. If you want to be a little bit more risky because you think you're going to continue working after you've reached your financial independence number and you don't really need to rely on the income as much, you could up that to 5% and see the impact that that has. You know, even if you're not as if you're more risk averse, you can say, okay, what is a 3.5%? And again, it is 3.5%, it's just rounding up. You can see how much extra time that's going to add on to your time to financial independence. And then this figure here just shows you the value of your take home at the 4% rate at the end of year 16. So you can see you'll have a little bit more per year, which means you could technically retire a little bit before the end of year 16. But if you want to, just continue finishing out that year of work, you'll have a bit extra money there and that you can rely on. So that's kind of as simple as it can be in the front end. It's literally just plug and play. If your scenarios change, you can open this back up again and say, okay, well, actually, no, I don't have enough. I don't have as much to contribute there anymore. I'm going to update that and reduce that number. I'm going to stop contributing to my pension, and I'm going to divert that money to my mortgage. And you can literally just play around with the figures and see the impact that it has on your time to financial independence and how much time it's going to take for you to be mortgage free. So that's it in a nutshell. If you do want to dig into more detail, I'll do some more videos on, more complex scenarios. I'm a bit worried to show you the detailed calculation tab just in case it scares you off, but essentially you don't need to go in here if you don't want to. These really are more for if you want to fine tune the calculations. So, these basically take into account that you're contributing this from today onwards. If you wanted to contribute this for this year and next year and then divert those to your pension and so on, that's where you need to go into the detailed calculations because the front end calculator doesn't account for those variations. So I'll just go into here just to give you an idea. of the details that are in here. So this is your ETF portfolio. You can see the growth, you can see the dividends that you'd be getting, you can see the exit taxes that are being incurred and removed. You can see the total valuation per year that your growth is going to grow to. And then you have your stock portfolio, you have your pension portfolio, which gets a little bit more complicated because once you turn 61, you need to pay income taxes on 4% of your portfolio. And once you turn 71, you pay 5%. So that's kind of taken into account here, where you can see the withdrawal starts to be made based on the taxation that you would owe once you reach age 61. Same for pension too. And then you have your total investment. So you can see the total value of your portfolio after a certain number of years based on the assumptions you put into the calculator. And then down here you have your mortgage. So you can see how many years it's going to take to pay it off. And then, your additional lump sums, your interest that you're incurring, and so on. So that's it. The portfolio performance again is here if you want help figuring out what your actual current portfolio is, a weighted performance and the weighted fees. So literally just again, anything in orange is what you would fill out. Again, takes a bit of digging into your existing portfolio, which can take a bit of time trying to figure out what all of these amounts are based on what you have invested. If you're just starting out, great, you don't have to go through this. But if you have existing investments, this actually is a really worthwhile exercise because it might flag to you, something that's not performing as well as you thought it was, and get you to consider maybe rebalancing your portfolio into something else. Or in the scenario of your pension, it might just flag to you that maybe it's not performing as high as you thought. Again, maybe getting you to look at the allocation rate based on the funds that's in there, based on your current risk tolerance. So you may have signed up for your pension 10 years ago when your risk tolerance was X. Say you were more risk averse then, but now that you've been investing on your own for a while, you have a bit higher of a risk tolerance. It would be worthwhile looking at the pension that you signed up to. If it's not auto redistributing based on your age, it is worthwhile looking at those and keeping a close eye on what is underneath the hood of your pensions. So again, it's literally just plug and play. So you put in the value of how much you have in that pension, you put in the allocation rate of the different funds, you put in the fees of the funds and the performance of the funds since inception. Those should be available in all the individual fact sheets if you look them up. Same thing here if you have. So this caters for two different funds. Say you had an old pension with an old employer and a new pension that you're still contributing to, but you have some money in one and you have some money in another. This helps you build up the weighted performance for both, where they're both compiled down here into total automatically, and it tells you your weighted performance. These are all linked back into the calculator. So if you wanted to start here, you could, but just to say you don't have to, you can overwrite what's in here. Anything that's highlighted in orange or has a border of orange is where you can update the figures, and it will impact this total figure. So without going into any more detail and scaring people off, I hope that's showed just kind of how powerful this can be in terms of changing your ideas and your goals and seeing what impact they have, seeing if you can contribute. You find savings somewhere and you now have a bit of extra money to contribute to one thing or another, and you can just see the impact that has. So I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll probably use this in some other videos just to kind of give you a walkthrough of other scenarios as they come up, and to show you how easy it is to kind of figure out what the math is behind your decisions, and then you can use that to weigh up what you actually want to do.